Good afternoon. Welcome back to the urban renewal session. We have started yesterday with 4 presentations and we are going to continue today with another 4 presentations covering again almost the whole Central Europe, starting or going from Kaunas in the north through Warsaw, Transylvania, up to Istanbul in Turkey. We start with the presentation by Dr. Maciej Czarnecki, representing Warsaw University of Technology. Hello, welcome. Dr. Maciej Czarnecki is an assistant professor at the Department of Architectural Heritage and Art at the Faculty of Architecture of the Warsaw University of Technology and head of the Contemporary Architecture and Art Unit in the department. And we will be listening and watching his presentation titled Transformations to the Ściana Wschodnia, the Eastern Wall complex in Warsaw as an example of the disintegrating effects of modernization of post-war modernist architectural heritage. Maciej, the screen is yours.
Thank you so much. This whole material sounds very promising, and I'm sure that we will get a lot of interesting inspirations and knowledge. That my title is quite long. I know it, but I was trying to content here the most important issue of my paper. An important issue in the area of heritage protection is paying attention to buildings and urban complexes of the second half of the 20th century. They are part of the living substance, we could say, of the city, and in this sense may pose certain problems related to the protection of their original and unique architectural and spatial and cultural values. And in this material, I'm going to present an example of probably for some of you, the obvious example of the important modern architectural heritage in the context of its recent modifications. In this presentation, maybe now I will briefly explain you the structure of the presentation. So at the beginning, the brief overview of the complex structure, the genesis of the formation and the pattern of assumptions. And then I will try to analyze and I will try to present the problem of the complex degradation in the process of the building's transformation. It was quite a long period, about 30 years. And then an attempt to assess the current state. So this is quite, I think, interesting and important. Discuss what actions should be taken now. So what the next step, and the final conclusion will be at the end. So now I will introduce you shortly to the general overview of the urban complex, the general arrangement of buildings and characteristic buildings, and the characteristic of buildings. The general building layout was the linear pedestrian passage, which is located parallel to the main Marszałkowska street, which is representative avenue. And the pedestrian zone is separated from the street by the three-story shopping pavilions of the Centrum department stores. There was a linear roof along the passage. Also, in this space, you can see these canopies under the passage. The department stores, there were three main department stores located here, and originally with an open interior inside and transparent facades, still structure and still very light frame of the structure. And then the Zodiac bar, which is on the plan, which is here, the bar and the cafe, a quick service bar with modern functional furnishing and the characteristic design connected to the cafe, integrated with the passage. The cinema Relax, a freestanding cinema building with a wide horizontal panoramic screen and the modern sound system. And the rotunda, very important part of the composition, rotunda bank pavilion, better visible here, a small banking facility located at the corner of two main streets at the end of the passage, a characteristic form with an expressive roof and light steel structure. Some of the original equipment furnishing was preserved in fairly good condition before the changes. And universal office building, the glass facade modeled on early glass skyscrapers with a curtain wall, difficult to adapt office interiors for the current, of course, for the current use. But the combination with the entire complex, it was an important accent and important background for the rotunda and for the whole complex of the Eastern Wall. Very important compositional element. The three apartment skyscrapers consistently marked in the skyline of the complex the 17 stories slender with a good layout of apartments covered with characteristic aluminium cladding with vertical division of the panels, but also as a vertical accent of the whole structure of the complex. And now an important point of reference for the entire Eastern Wall complex were similar projects that were being built in Western Europe at that time. The first is the Lijnbaan shopping arcade in Rotterdam that influenced Ściana Wschodnia really a lot, very much. And the second one is the Hotorget complex passage in Stockholm center. Similar facilities were implemented later in Poland, and all of them has the especially this example, you can find the parallel passage to the main street. And so here in Stockholm, this is quite similar. And here in Rotterdam, the similar forms and the scale and these canopies and whole general idea of the complex was quite similar. So it's quite obvious that we can treat them as a pattern for this. And another thing is that we have, okay, I'm trying to change the slide. Not moving. Oh, now. Okay. So we also remember that similar examples they appeared in Poland and in major cities. So every large city has its own Eastern Wall, such as, for example, the Centrum department store complex in in Poznań, based on the similar assumption of a linear passage. Thus, the influence of the Eastern Wall on the development of downtown commercial buildings was very significant. And the problem with protecting of this complex lies in the consistent and illogical process of conduct that has taken place over the past 3 decades. Initially, in the 90s, the ownership structure of the complex was changed, as a result of which the state-owned department stores Centrum became a private company that first traded under its own brand as Galeria Centrum, and nothing much happened then, except for a deeply serious modification of Zodiac Bar. You can see the difference on these 2 pictures. This is the facade. This is the same facade, but from different perspective. You can see what happened, in fact, in the early 90s. And around the year 2000, Domy Centrum, the company called the department stores, stopped to operate under its own brand, and that was important situation. The part of the space has been rented to other clothing brands, and the surrounding area has been rebuilt immediately in a completely new way, as you know, the sign of the new changes. So later, the shapes of glazing and the composition of facades of the department store were changed, as well as the facade cladding of the skyscrapers. In addition, the pleasant linear and intimate space of the passage have been broken by demolishing the original canopies, replacing them with tall modern lanterns scattered across the empty floor of the passage. No flower pots, no benches, no greenery canopies, glass showcases. You know, in fact, no living space, as we can see here. Around 2010, the cinema behind it was closed, renting the interior for a boutique with used clothes, and then some shop delicatessen with storage facilities in the basement on the site of the former theater stage, which was under the building of the cinema, was the small chamber theater, and in this place it was turned to the storage for the clothes. So at this point, I think at this point, a question that is very important for the entire process of transformation of contemporary heritage arises. Does the degree of regression, degradation, and abandonment observed on the example of one of the most important and largest modern shopping complexes in Poland have an almost symbolic dimension? Do the cultural values related to the architectural and urban heritage not undergo simultaneous destruction following the degradation of the urban space as well as the architectural substance? And in simply words, is this not a symbolic decline in cultural values in general? I think that question is quite important for the discussion. And first of all, it should be emphasized that the Eastern Wall complex and other architectural and urban complexes of this type should be treated as comprehensive spatial structure. The functional disintegration of the complex consisting in separating the passage from department stores, separating the cinema, gastronomy, and other elements of the entire complex made it easy to take out individual pieces of the puzzle and change them without any connection, without an integration connection, without an integral connection with the whole complex. This is the main mistake that triggered the in here. Of course, there is currently a great festival of a kind of fashion for the Eastern Wall and the modernism generally, and a new pavilion visible here, Zodiac, was opened referring to the Zodiac Bar. It was organized thanks to the initiatives of the Association of Polish Architects and the National Institute of Architecture and Town Planning. This is a completely new building, which was, of course, based on the former cafe with a terrace. But formerly, here were the stairs on the left and the external terrace. Now, this is the exhibition space, and recently an exhibition was organized and the publication was issued on the Eastern Wall, which, well, now does not exist, in fact, except this new building, which is not a part of original Eastern Wall. So, and the cinema, which is original as well. I think that the big problem is the lack of the systematic protection of modern heritage, and efforts should be made to ensure that the heritage of the modern, late modern, and even postmodern movement is subject to uniform and unstable evaluation rules. Only in this way we can successfully undertake the task of protecting valuable modern architecture with pioneering and unique universal values from the destruction. In this particular case, an additional problem is that many changes have already been made, and the prospect of their reversal may be associated with the need for comprehensive reconstruction or restoration of individual elements of the building. Perhaps such radical actions should be taken on the basis of knowledge, technological solutions, and possibly preserved original solutions. This method of protecting modern heritage should be taken into account. And of course, I understand that the original substance has been lost, and this is just this is good example. What you can see here, that the original existing substance was replaced by the completely new, with the promise, which you can see on the poster, which is on the left picture. There is the promise that we will return to the same form with a rotunda, and the new building is completely different than the original form and built with different structure and different shape. So the promise was just a promise. And the final conclusion, the question what we should take under our consideration is quite simple. What was that right that the Eastern Wall complex was modified in such unfortunate way, and is the replacement of buildings that represents defined values with new buildings that just imitate those values, or even not imitate, as we can see, a proper method for the important architectural and urban heritage protection? Of course, my answer is no, but please take it to your consideration. And the general reflection that prompts us to ask the question, how should we treat architectural and urban heritage of the second half of the 20th century to keep their important values and protect the legacy of modernity, well, especially modern movement, for the future generations? And this is the end of my material. Thank you very much for your attention.
The heritage of the post-war modernism in Central Europe. We have touched it a little bit yesterday, thanks to Professor Ewa Chojecka presentation, but you put now a very important question, how to preserve the heritage of modernity. I think we refer to it in the question and answer part. But now we are still in the 20th century heritage, and I am really happy to introduce another speaker, Dr. Ingrida Veliutė from Lithuania. Hello, Ingrida. I'm really happy to see you again. We are happy to have Ingrida for the second time within our forum. 2 years ago, she was also attending. Today, Ingrida represents Martyras Mažvydas National Library of Lithuania, but it is really hard to shortly say about Ingrida involvements and duties. 2 years ago, she was here as a researcher, but at the same time as a Vice Minister of Culture of the Republic of Lithuania. So let me, in the context of your presentation, notice only one position as a chairwoman of the supervision group for the preparation of Kaunas modernist architecture application for the UNESCO World Heritage List, because your presentation will focus on that very important example. We keep fingers crossed for the whole effort for appreciation, international and universal appreciation for Kaunas architectural heritage. So Ingrida will present us the presentation titled "The Black Architectural Pearls in Kaunas, or the Last Steps Before UNESCO." Ingrida, welcome. The screen is yours.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation, for presenting me. The organizers, it's a real honor to be in this forum, and it is very important for all of us to meet, even if it's online, with the other researchers and specialists from all over the world. And I'm really proud to be a part of this community and to be a part of sustainable development. And today I would like to present my paper, dramatical, titled "The Black Architectural Pearls in Kaunas, or the Last Steps Before UNESCO." There are actually many reasons to talk about UNESCO today. One of them is that we are coming to the 15th years anniversary of UNESCO Convention concerning the protection of the world culture and natural heritage in 2022. The main reason for Lithuania is that in the beginning of this year, as was mentioned, our nomination this year, Modernist Kaunas, Architect of Optimism 1939, has been submitted to the UNESCO World Heritage Center for inscription on the UNESCO World Heritage List. And the architecture of Kaunas modernism is a phenomenon because after the First World War, during the temporary relocation of the capital from Vilnius to Kaunas, it was created all the infrastructure necessary for the governments of the state. And 10,000 new buildings were constructed in this time, and by the 30s, Kaunas began to see the return of young Lithuanian specialists who studied architecture in Western Europe, and they brought a new trends home with them. So these modernists or professionals became a powerful collective force, and Kaunas got actually a very unique style. And we are not far away from modernist center of Gdynia, so it could be a nice route from UNESCO to UNESCO. And the third reason is, as it already also was mentioned, that I was a vice minister, and I was responsible for this for the preparation of this year, and actually, I'm a resident for more than 20 years of the area of future UNESCO territory, and I'm a researcher also. That I am my interests are the connection with the architects and local communities. Shortly, the country that I'm talking about is less than 800 kilometers to the north from Krakow, and Kaunas is the second city of Lithuania, and it's dislocated in the very middle of the state. In the bigger map, you can see the future UNESCO territory. It's in the old city and the new city, Žaliakalnis, that I'm talking about, and other protected territories. And Žaliakalnis district is a part. It has a very specific urbanization. It was called as a city garden and planned in 1923. As you can see in the smaller map. But not all territory, of course, as you see, will be protected by UNESCO. It's just selected authentic objects. Actually, I had another idea how to present my today's paper, and I wanted to talk about formal preparation for UNESCO nomination, management plans and possibilities, urban transformations, and etc. But after Zoom seminar about UNESCO last week, where I was listening for three presentations of Dr. Jan Khan, Professor Michelle Turner, and special of Jean Thompson, I decided to change my path of presentation and to show heritage as a daily routine, as yesterday said the director of International Culture Center in Krakow, Mrs. Agata. So the main elements for heritage protection, as I think, are community. I mean local people who are living in this property. Some of them are old, but some younger and participate in heritage or in social political organization, have collaborative spirit with location and locals. Also professionals, it means researchers, architects, writers who can give advices to local people, and sometimes they are the part of this community too. Municipality, it's mayor or the responsible persons who are taking care about heritage in a city, and government and policymakers. It means persons or institutions who are making decisions in the state and creates dialogue and connections between all parts. I found that all these elements are very important from the very beginning, even from the building of new districts, as it happened in Kaunas in the interwar period. So short historical overview. I don't want to tell you all history of Kaunas, so I just tell you that when Kaunas became the main political center of Lithuania, the capital of the nation, as architecture historic Petrulis writes, the development of Kaunas in the early 1920s can be described as a process determined by the urgent needs of everyday urban functioning, the location of state institutions, roads, traffic management, public health issues, and however, the city board was well aware of the need to expand the territory of the municipality. The first systematic attempts to build the capital date back to 2023, when it was decided to invite Marius Franzen, and the experienced Danish engineer and urban planner, to work on the city plan. With the help of municipal engineer Antanas Jokimas, Franzen developed a new city plan that combined radial and rectangular street networks in Kaunas. So, as we see, the first players were municipality and government, and they made a decision to expand down in a city garden idea, and it wasn't realized fully, but anyway, it was very important in this time. And the professionals are invited to plan it, and some of them started to be a part of local community because the part of the Žaliakalnis district I am talking about were settled by intelligence and rich people. Actually, it is still now. And it started not only like a normal living processes, but also, for example, the Baltic song and dance celebrations, and inscribed in UNESCO list 2, started here in Žaliakalnis. And I'm not sure if in 1939 the climate change was on the top, but as Torbjörn Andersson writes, a small town with a low density of small houses with yards and carefully planned, often three-line streets which offer clean water, greenery and fresh air, good living conditions, low construction costs and affordable rents. This is what we have in district Žaliakalnis, and which can be translated also from Lithuania as a green upper hill. In the Soviet period, it was made some interventions with some 5-floor houses, but the damages are not very high, and the bigger problem was that small houses were divided to 2 or 3 owners, and wooden houses were destroyed, and even the craftsmen who were working with the wood, they started to disappear. So the traditions were almost lost. After the collapse of Soviet Union, the owners came back to houses in Žaliakalnis, and in 2002, Professor Nijolė Lukšonytė with other researchers pursued municipality responsible people, and the specific protection rules of the historical part Žaliakalnis were accepted. In this research, we found that 10 years ago, the people of this district were very happy, and they have own garden, to live in a small house, and as written in this report, there was no tendency to build the big houses in this part of the city. In the similar time, we started to create a database of wooden houses called Archimede, and so almost 10 years ago I understood how important is good neighborhood and good examples of conservation in the near. So step by step we came to UNESCO nomination this year, and it was actually a very big honor. 2 years to be together with the people, with the policymakers, responsible heritage, especially the Secretariat of the Lithuanian National Commission for UNESCO, architects and other managers. And we came to common decisions for the future management plan, and I hope it will work for the next years. I can show some examples of authentic houses. It's small, even a little bit baroque elements in the wooden houses, some villas, some also mural houses, and more than one flat, like 2 or 3 flat houses, and other. And if we are talking about the communication and the community, the professionals are informed quite well. We have a movie, a book, even exhibition was created, and it traveled in the European countries. We have a lot of publications and so on. But if we are talking about community, I think that pandemic time wasn't very good for us, and the promotion, communication, and meetings with different groups are in not so very not so very, how to say, in a good position. And I think that what I miss, that the communications with residents of the future UNESCO districts should be very intensive. And it is very important to create economic viability, social collective identities, and resilient societies against dispossession in the World Heritage Place. I hope that it will be organized very similar things to communicate with the people who are living here. I'm talking about Pink Mark territory near the city center and still in a city garden place. There are not yet consistent, rather exploratory field studies in a relatively small area. But if in 2002 there was not even a tendency to build large houses and offices, now, in recent years, such constructions has increased, and even if it formally meets the heritage protection criteria, there are made real irreversible changes in the historical place and residential homesteads. As you see, it's an office house and big house with more than 2 or 3 flats. Just the black pearls, as I called it. These are constructions of wooden houses with they made a little bit bigger than it was before, and very modern private houses that you can observe only from the upper level of Žaliakalnis. Just houses, and some of them are even wooden house stand in this place, and it was destroyed, and heritage institutions asked to rebuild it as it was, but it wasn't built from the wooden materials, but it was built from the bricks, from the black bricks, and actually those 2 houses are near, and the third house is already also to prepared for building. So it's not the best situation. One more reconstruction. Of course, it's not a new idea, but rather a readaptation of the old advices that the greatest impact of heritage sites is made by proper neighborhood. Such an approach was applied in the management of the historical town in Guimarães in Portugal when it was declared as a European capital of culture. Kaunas capital of culture did not implement such interventions, but examples of good neighbor lines are also evident in Žaliakalnis. Where demolitions or extensions construction begins, these processes occur one after another on several adjacent plots. But if the owner of a wooden or brick house starts to repair in the right way, neighbors do the same, and this phenomenon is slowly spreading in the city and with the help of municipal funding, but it still reaches not so many residents of Žaliakalnis, of course. So I would like to come back to the Sustainable Development Goals and goal number 11 and 2030 agenda, which calls on mayor groups and other stakeholders, including local authorities, to report on their contribution to the implementation of the agenda. And local and regional governments have a wealth of valuable to provide leadership in the mobilization of a wide range of stakeholders, the facilitation of bottom-up and inclusive processes, and the formation of multi-stakeholder partnerships. So I would like to leave just some advices for today policymakers, because I'm not a policymaker anymore, and not only for Kaunas and not only for Lithuania, but for all future UNESCO places in everyday heritage areas. I think that it is very important to move from a control and punishment model to heritage advice and consultation. And I think it would be very useful to prepare a good heritage center in Kaunas and to provide the real advices to residents and from the heritage places or for the people who just want to build new architecture in the old way. The other thing, I think it is very important for architects not to take into account not only the economic value and immediate benefits, but also it is very important the sustainability in the construction and reconstruction of buildings in the UNESCO area. We have a problem in Lithuania. Actually, I would like. I would very happy if it would be changed that not to let the reconstruction, but to let the build a new and professional architecture and new good buildings in protected areas, but not to make reconstructions from the old garages and small houses to big ones. And for residents, of course, to follow up the examples of good neighborhoods and communicate with each other. And as said Professor David Trosby today in the keynote lecture, expenditure on conservation, adaptive reuse, and etc. could be an investment project. So the investment projects are very welcome, and I think the people are understanding one after another that it is important to have UNESCO territory, not because of the rules that they will be given from up to us, but because we should be proud of this, that we are living in UNESCO territory, that we have something special, that we had a very interesting historical period, and it is important for us, but not for the people who are living in Paris or somewhere else, or maybe for those people also. So I hope that we are coming to this point, and I'm very happy that in Kaunas case we had a very good connections and meetings between all these parts that I was talking about. It's government, municipality, people and professionals or experts who are working in this field. And it's not about the cat, but about green grass from the seeds I got in 2019 in the 5th Heritage of Forum. I think our sustainable development and a green policy, we should start from our own home. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ingrida. We are all heritage specialists, but again, your example was really eye-opening. How difficult and fragile is the whole process, how fragile is the urban tissue you are working with, and how to negotiate all the stakeholders of the process. So we keep fingers crossed not only for the UNESCO inscription, but as well for establishing the Center of Heritage Excellence in Kaunas, which you proved it's as well important for the city as the international recognitions. Thank you very much, and let's proceed further. I'm very happy to welcome Ilena Abos from Romania, representing the Technical University in Cluj-Napoca. Hello, Ilena.
Hello.
Ilena is a PhD student and an art historian, and on her research she focuses on the state of cultural heritage in Transylvania and Banat in Romania in the 20th and the 21st centuries, as well as the impact of communism on the cultural heritage. Very important issues touching the subjects we were already discussing here, but you will take us into the Mureș River Valley to see what's the state of the aristocratic residences in the Mureș country. So Anna, Ilena, the screen is yours.
Thank you. It is an honor to be here with you, and today I present a small part of my research. During 16th and 20th century, do you hear me? Do you hear me? Do you hear me? Okay, thank you. During 16th and 20th century, noble residences were built in the Mureș Valley. This increased the importance of the area for the national heritage. In the space where the residents were built, a harmony were created between landscape and architecture. Transylvania is the crossroads of the Central and Eastern Europe. During time, Transylvania was a place where three great community created impressive cultural heritage. We talk about Székely and Selcen. Székely were brought by Hungarian kingdom in 12th century, and after that Selcen were brought for their skills and artisanate and artisan and the trade. Back then, Transylvania was a part of the Hungarian kingdom, and this is Mureș County. From the point of view of geographically, it's a very important county. We can see there are mountains in the north, there are plains in the west, and plateau and hills. And in this special place, nobly aristocratic residents were built. When we look at the monuments, all type of monuments, the area has 37 monuments, which included fortress, castle, manor houses, and places. In this place, there are 36 castles, but when we look at this map, only 10 castles is today included in cultural circuits. When I created a map, when I was in the field, I looked all the places. I found 33 castle and manor houses, and I create my map. I call this my map because there are two reasons. Because there are potential in the area, and because there are some monuments which are in danger for extinction. But is a question. There is a great question. Why these monuments, which are a significant part of cultural heritage, are in danger? One of the reasons is that in 1984, the communists took the power in Romania, and 1 year later, all castle and manor houses were confiscated. The buildings were transformed in office for agricultural institution, hospital, mental hospital, or public school. Communists wanted to eradicate all, which means history, because they wanted to create a new history. After the collapse of the communists, sorry, there is a mistake there, the things were in change, but only at the beginning of 21st century, the process of restitution began. When we look from the point of view of the noble residents in Mureș County, from the point of view of the preservation of this castle, the statistics are in this way. 15 monuments are saved, 5 are in pre-collapse, and 6 is in collapse. Under restoration, just 8. But this statistic refers only to the main building, because the parks are not longer there, the library are not longer there, all the furniture are not longer there, and I think they are all lost. It's a bit difficult for me to change the stuff. From the point of view of the property, this is the situation, and now I will talk about a good example. In the case of safe monuments, there are 2 situations where the noble family, received the castle and restored, and included in the circuit castle, and there are great effort to maintain the castle. And there is a second situation when many of the castle was in ruin, and the mayor bought the castle, restored the castle, and transform and save the castle. One of the example is St. George de Mureș, where Marianki Castle was bought in 2010 in a state of ruin, and after a lot of work, the castle is restored, and it will be a museum dedicated to the community and a conference room. Then it is a castle, it's rather a manor house. It's a castle where during the communist period the building suffered damage, and it was restored after 1989. Another example, a good example, is at Bachnea, where Bethlehem Castle was saved. The castle underwent restoration in 2019. In Bethlehem Krish, a family donated the castle to the St. Francis Foundation for 50 years, in turn that the foundation will restored the castle. And now I show you restoration in small step. Ugron Castle is known as calendar castle because it has a calendar structure. There are 4 towers, 7 terraces, 12 halls, 54 rooms, 3,065 windows. It's not the restoration is not finished. Then another castle in Gurghiu, Bornemisa Castle, which here the park is, we can see the park. It has 10 hectares, and there are a lot of important species which is conserved. Now I will want to present a part which are very sad for my point of view, because these castles were destroyed after 1989. The castle from Apalina, Husar Castle, at early 20th century was a magnificent castle with a magnificent park. There were 3 lakes in the park, and today the castle is not longer exist. I heard that locals stole piece by piece all that they could stole. Another example is Bethlehem Castle from Boyu. This is in the state property, but in 1977 was abandoned, and in 2021 it looks like nothing left there. And the last one from this category is one of the most impressive castle, Haller Castle, which was a Baroque castle in Grasalgovic style, which now is in possession of the church, because the Haller family donated what is left from the castle to the church. And another category is that monuments which are bought and saved, but they lost their value due to the intervention suffer. And I show you this. And the question is, what we have to do to save the monuments and transform it, or let to perish? It's a very difficult question, because here in Veliutė Castle there was an important park, there was an important library which 15,000 volumes, with a room with Doric columns. The constructor who bought the castle saved just a little part from the castle, because he thought he couldn't save the rest of the castle. And I want to finish with 2 good examples, because my hope is that we will find in the future, as the community, a way to talk to the community, to find a way that community to understand that the castle is an important part of the cultural heritage, and the castle can develop the area. One of the castle is Kameni Castle from Brâncovenești, which was transformed in the communist period into a hospital, mental institution. And this castle has a huge history, which go back in the 16th century. And in 20th century, there was a literary and cultural association called Helicon, in which Romanian literature and Hungarian literature were translated, Romanian literature for Hungarian and Hungarian literature for Romanian. The castle has the park, which is the landscape park, and association of the Kameni Association are made a lot of efforts to restore the castle in the right way. And this is a picture from the park. And the last castle is Gornești. is at the Gornești, and it's Teleki Castle, where Teleki family founded the Teleki Castle Association and are looking for ways to restore the castle in proper way, which respect the architectural and Count Teleki search a way to make that to approach the community and to integrate the castle in the touristic circuit and how to put it, he trying to find ways to restore the castle, because here the damage were made after a lot of damage was made after 1989. This is a picture from the park. In the park there are statues which are restored. And in the final of my presentation, I want to show you just a small part from a clip from YouTube, which where we can see that Transylvania is a special place. I don't know if I can see. It's not working. It's not important. In my research, it's a difficult research because it's very because there are not a lot of information in Romanian. All the information are in Hungarian, and when I went on the field and I talked with the people from the community where there are castle or where are the manor house, the community, not all the member of the community remembers the castle, and this is a very not the castle, sorry, not remember the history and the importance, and they don't see the importance of the castle and for the community. For them, it's just a building, and I think here a communist has a major role because nobility in the period of the communists were associated with people who destroyed our country. It's concept. It's like that. And I hope that the things will change, and this part of our cultural heritage will be saved. Thank you. And I'm sorry because it was a little bit difficult for me to change the slide. I thank you for understanding.
Thank you very much, Ilena, Anna. Don't worry about the presentation. The most important was the message you showed us. You gave us an important example. On the one hand, of the tangible, densely tangible heritage of Transylvanian castles, palaces, and manor houses, which were so much neglected, and how to find the surviving for them. And at the same time, very important issue you put, the intangible issue of the memory, of the oblivion, of a monument which is speechless to the community. This is an extremely important issue. I hope we will discuss later in the closing part of our session. So thank you very much again. And now we are approaching Istanbul. I'm really happy to introduce Mine Esmer. Hello, Mine. She represents Fatih Sultan Mehmet Vakıf University in Turkey. Mine is a conservation architect whose research focuses on the historic preservation of medieval architecture. What is important, she focuses on both the Ottoman architecture as well as Byzantine architecture too. And she will present urban renewal project and Tarlabaşı neighborhood in Istanbul. Dr. Mine Esmer, welcome, and the floor is yours. Okay, so we are waiting for the proper connection. We've managed with Australia, so I'm sure we will manage with Istanbul as well.
Yeah.
Oh, we can hear you. Hello.
Oh, great. Hello. I was afraid that there was a problem. Oh, sorry. Now I have to organize the because there was a connection problem. I have to organize again the remote control. I am sorry. Okay. Now. Okay. You can hear me, right? Okay. So I can start my presentation. I am starting. You can hear me, right? Okay. Hi, I am Mine Esmer. I am going to make this presentation in the name of 4 other colleagues of mine. This is a shared proceeding. Today I am going to talk about Tarlabaşı renewal project in Istanbul. First, I am going to start with how Tarlabaşı is defined in the short story of Said Faik as dark streets downhill with poor houses. And there are people from all religions and sects, Turkish, Russian, Armenian, Greek, Nestorian, Arab, Gypsy, French, etc. This story was first published in 1946, so we can understand that the late Ottoman socio-demographic fabric is still seen before the mid-20th century in Tarlabaşı. This is the circled, red circled area is the place location of Tarlabaşı. This is Bosphorus, the historic peninsula of Istanbul, the Galata settlement, and to the north of it you can see the Beyoğlu area, and Tarlabaşı is located there. For Beyoğlu, we can say that İstiklal Street, the Street of Independence, is like a backbone stretching from Galata until the Taksim Square. And before the 1870 fire in Beyoğlu area, the houses were more modest and had lower stories. But after the fire, there was an urbanization movement in the area, and 4 5-story apartments were introduced to the area, and squares, wide streets, hotels, and a new urbanization project was introduced. And for Beyoğlu, we can say that it has always been an area where in each period, cultural and ideological preferences of the dominant groups were expressed. And also, we can say that it's for Turkish people, especially for Istanbul people, it has always been associated with cinema, because 2 years after the first cinema was shown in France, this technology was brought to Beyoğlu. So in our collective memory for Istanbul people, we always associate Beyoğlu with cinema. Unfortunately, we can say that the neoliberal policies that began to dominate in all over the world, including Turkey and Istanbul, has changed the built environment a lot. And so you can see that the rising skyscrapers has changed even the historic silhouette of the peninsula of Istanbul. How this Tarlabaşı renewal project was implemented is by the sake of a renewal law, number 5366, which was enacted in 2005, and it allows the designation of historic sites as urban renewal areas and gives the municipalities the authority to prepare renewal plans outside the conventional planning system. And it has been criticized because it tends towards demolishing and raises the risk of gentrification, reduces the process of renewal to physical interventions. So I would like to show a few examples of other renewal projects in Istanbul, all from other historic areas of Istanbul. The first one is Sulu Kule. Sulu Kule is located on the historic peninsula beside the Theodosian walls from 5th century and architect Sinan's mosque from 16th century. The original inhabitants of the area were the gypsies, who earned their money daily from music and dancing. They were deported out of the area. All the area was demolished, and identical new structures were constructed, and the traditional building methods were not regarded. The second example is Ayvansaray, which is located at the northeastern part of, again, the historic peninsula. Ayvansaray was called Villa Hernai in Byzantine period. We can see the wooden houses before the urban renewal project began. These are again photographs from the area before the renewal project was implemented. And after the implementation, we see, for example, this big hotel, which was finished by uniting small parcels, which is very contradictory to the preservation charters. And of course, you can see that near to the historic walls, no traditional building techniques or materials were used. The third example is Süleymaniye urban renewal area, which is also very contradictory, because this is the borders of the renewal area, and this pink dotted line you see is the borders of the World Heritage Site at Süleymaniye, which overlaps with a big portion of the urban renewal area. So there are big demolitions in the area. The traditional houses are not well taken care of. Some reconstructions are proposed, even beside some very important historic buildings like this Byzantine building from the mid-Byzantine period, or the Süleymaniye complex, which is the one of the most important historic elements in the region, that you see that new structures are built just beside. So these are the other renewal examples from Istanbul. And now I would like to go back to the history of the area. Tarlabaşı, generally this Beyoğlu area was not very densely inhabited before the 19th century. Galata was a dense settlement, but in Beyoğlu area, there was a dervish lodge, a few small masjids, a school for the Topkapı Palace, and foreign embassies, and also cemeteries at Taksim and at Taksim and near to the today Tepebaşı area, there were cemeteries. You can see here this building, the German embassy, and just beside it you can see the cemetery area. Again, in this archival photo, we can see the German embassy and the cemetery. And after 856, the Reform Edict, the non-Muslim groups they formed a high bourgeoisie, and they selected Beyoğlu area as their residential area. And downhill from Beyoğlu, this İstiklal Street, there was the Tarlabaşı neighborhood, and more to the down, Dolapdere neighborhood. And Tarlabaşı was for mid to lower class people, and Dolapdere for lower class residents. And we can say that Beyoğlu, at the end of the 19th century, most of the majority of the population was non-Muslims, and they were in majority. Greeks and Armenians were in majority. And new professions, of course, brought to the area, like this studio of photography, Stebajoalie, which is very famous on Grand Rue de Pera. 20th century was a time of major changes, starting from the beginning of it with the First World War, and then the establishment of Turkish Republic, change of populations between Greece and Turkey, where you see the photographs of change of populations. And after there was a heavy tax for non-Muslims during the Second World War, and in 1955 an attack against non-Muslims, and deportation of non-Muslims deportation of Greeks in 1964 was the last thing that decreased the population of the non-Muslim community at Tarlabaşı. And after that, 50s, 60s in Turkey, after that, an internal immigration started from Anatolia to Istanbul, which raised the population of Istanbul, and these people started to reside at Tarlabaşı instead of the original non-Muslim inhabitants. You see the yellow marked area. In 1987, the mayor of Istanbul demolished 370 buildings in this area in order to open a large boulevard that is called Tarlabaşı Boulevard. And this pink area is the renewal project that we are going to talk about today. So the boulevard was opened by, as you can see, cutting the dense fabric, and many historic structures were demolished. Unfortunately, a large boulevard was opened, which made Tarlabaşı, staying on this side of the road, more as an outsider, as a neighborhood of outsiders. And after that, we can see in the Turkish cinema or TV series that Tarlabaşı is associated as a neighborhood of crime, as a neighborhood of the unwanted strata of the society, like migrants, immigrants, etc. So coming to the Tarlabaşı project today, you see this is the large boulevard open in 80s, and this yellow marked area is the project area that was implemented on 9 islands. When we look at the 20th century map of Tarlabaşı, we see that the parcels are rectangular, slender parcels, detached on both sides. But in the renewal project, unfortunately, the project was not implemented parcel by parcel, and the planning was made in islands as a whole. Only a replica of the facades were kept. This is the old silhouette, and this is the new proposed silhouette. Only the replica of the facades were left for historic structures, and some auto parks were planned underground. So that's why also they were planned by island, not plot by plot. And you see this is the promotion of the project, but the background is an imaginary view. It is not Beyoğlu, not İstanbul. And you see that only the facade is left like a picture. It's not related with preservation. And when you compare the old facades with the new facades, we can say that unfortunately it is a complete loss of collective memory from the city. Yes, and all these 9 islands were given to different architectural offices to be planned, and you can see the examples that they planned. So we have seen the problems in this project, and with our graduate students at Fatih Sultan Mehmet University, we decided to work in the whole neighborhood of Tarlabaşı, comprising the renewal area. We made some analysis. We made some models of the streets with laser scanners and drone. And we try to understand the condition of the area for preservation. You can see that the built fabric is very dense from our void solid analysis. And this is the registered building analysis, and the buildings in burgundy are the registered buildings. This is the Tarlabaşı renewal area, which was implemented. But you can still see that in the rest of the area, there are a significant stock of registered structures. We checked the structural state of conservation for the buildings. We checked the integrity and authenticity of the buildings. We made, as I said, we made some models of the streets in order to understand the facade organizations, the typologies, roof connections, and we made some drawings on both sides of the streets from these models in order to understand and make a project of preservation, propose a project of preservation. And when we come to the conclusion, I can say that, in the applied project by the law of 5366, the tangible and intangible heritage, the past of the area was not regarded. The change was very quick, which was against the Valletta principles of 2011. Urban patterns, the street grid, lots, green spaces, form appearance of the buildings, relationship between the town and the urban area was not regarded. However, according to our analysis, we have seen that Tarlabaşı still presents a significant historic fabric starting from mid-19th to late modern examples of 20th century. And we have seen at the renewal project, which is called Tarlabaşı 360, that fast and quick implementations have disadvantages for existing users and the historic public. Therefore, a slow project, parcel by parcel or plot by plot, keeping socio-demographical structure, not letting gentrification to cause deportation of the current inhabitants, can be very good for the preservation of the area and for inheriting this important cultural heritage to future generations. Thank you for listening to me, and these are our references for preparing this presentation.
Mine, thank you very much for your presentation. On the one side, it recalled us in the ICC, the marvelous exhibition we were lucky to host 3 years ago about Istanbul in photography. The exhibition done with Pera Museum in Istanbul, so very close to Beyoğlu, and showing us the city you also presented in your presentation. But on the other side, you recalled a sinister aspect of the term urban renewal. Thank you for that. Urban renewal may means also erasing, like you show, and what we can do is the question. So may we go to the discussion, and may we go to the question and answer part. I can't see you. Welcome back, and excuse us for the short break. Welcome back to the last presentation. I'm really happy to introduce Ildikó Riika Batorinen-Nagy, representing Hungarian University of Agriculture and Life Sciences. And she's going to present the presentation on historic urban green network development, a case study of Buda Green Corridor. So we are right in the middle of Central Europe, Budapest, in particular Buda. Ildikó, the screen is yours.
Thank you very much for the word and for the introduction. I will present a shared proceeding. We are two landscape architects and two architect urbanists who were prepared this research. It was forming from a state call, because the state of Hungary would like to develop the Buda Green Corridor, and we were asked to prepare a research from landscape architecture point of view and also from urban development point of view, what can be done to preserve the green and also the built heritage of the corridor, and how to develop to serve new needs of the 21st century. So just some introductory note from the Green Corridor. The base of the corridor is a former small water course, which is the course which called the Ördögárok. That's the Devil's Ditch, if I translate. The name comes from the Middle Ages, when this open small water course was causing a lot of problem to the people of Buda because of its very quick runoff and also the huge and very damaging floods. So the people were suffering this small water course, not having as a resource of water, so they named it the Devil's Ditch. The Green Corridor is 5.1 kilometer long in the city center of Buda, and some key factors how it looks like today. It is within a dense historic urban tissue and also loaded by several networks of technical infrastructure. Just you can see it on the right up picture. Heavy roads and also tram lines are placed in the valley, in the bottom of the valley. There are still remaining green space in the bottom of the valley. They are significant urban city parks and other public green spaces with a high canopy coverage, what you can see on the bottom picture, right bottom picture. These green spaces nowadays are fragmented and isolated. They live by themselves, but because of the heavy life and because of the urban life, they suffer a heavy impact of use. They are very popular and also high environmental stress. We had two research questions to answer set by the states. Whether to restore the creek and have a wonderful urban creekside landscape, which is quite popular nowadays in urban development phenomena, to open up and to revitalize former creeks and have wonderful creekside landscapes, whether it's possible, what to lose, what to gain. And the other research question was how to restore the historic Green Corridor, enhancing the connectivity to get the connection back, to build a connection back between these parks, and still having space and also possibility to development. Okay, just a bird's eye view for all you to remember. I'm sure that all of you have been already in Budapest visiting the city center and also the surrounding areas. Just a little reminder, in the middle we have the Danube River. Then we have two sides. The flat one is Pest, the hilly one is Buda. And in the middle of the picture, you can see the UNESCO World Heritage Site, Buda Castle and Danube River. And our corridor, our Buda Green Corridor, is just behind the Castle Hill, between the Buda Hills and the Castle Hill itself. So if we go from the Danube, the northest in the picture up, you can see the first big park, which is on the foothills of Gellért Hill. Then the second one, which is called Taban. And then the third patch is Vérmező, if I translate, is the bloody field, which was developed in the former glacis of the castle. And the fourth one is the oldest public city park in Budapest, called Városmajor. If you look at the topographical model on the right, you can see that the Buda corridor is the one and only valley which runs directly from the Buda Hills to the Buda city center, bringing cool and cold air. And the main characteristics of the valley is also comes from the topography. It's the narrowness and also the shape, how it follows the former creek. How it developed as a Buda Green corridor, it's also interesting. We can see two parallel trends. One is the step-by-step loss of the creek in the corridor, and parallelly the gain of park and park one after another. Because the Devil's Ditch was very much a harmful one, causing serious damage and casualties by its floods. It was first covered at the beginning of the 19th century. Here you can see a military map from 1810 to 20. The Devil's Ditch, the watercourse, is still all open during the whole valley. And here on the right side, you can see some historic photographs of the neighborhood called Taban, which was very densely built and populated, and also suffering the most from the flood events. So first, it was decided to cover the first section at the joint section to the Danube at the beginning of the 19th century. Then here you can see on the map that by 1823 the first section was already covered, but the built structure was not strong enough to bear the flood, so it was destroyed right away after the biggest flood in the years. So it was reconstructed, but in a much higher volume of construction and a longer section afterwards. You can see on the picture how the remains of the former bridges and how memorial stands for the Devil's Ditch on the surface today. This is the area Taban. It's also very interesting that this was the first part of the small watercourse which was covered due to the damage. But this is the last park was formed in the park chain, because the neighborhood itself, you can see on the left side, it was still standing in the 1910s, and it was demolished just before the 1930s to rebuild it as a much higher volume and much higher density of buildings as a bath quarter. Budapest is also famous for the wonderful springs and the bath culture, and this place was planned to rebuild as a bath center, as a bath quarter with villas, with hotels and nice parks. Fortunately, it never happened. So the park, which was planned temporarily in the 1930s, it still remains and has a wonderful contrast to the World Heritage Site, Castle Hill, to form a green space, to have a wonderful balance. Then the third big action to cover the creek itself, it was taking place at the beginning of at the end of the 18th century. So you can see it on the military map from 1903, that the whole section next to the Castle Hill is already underground. And on the right side, you can see the bloody field, which is the former glacis. It's still, at the beginning of the century, it's still a field, a grassland, but on the picture you can see that nowadays it has already a significant canopy coverage and has a kind of historic park character. The fourth section was covered at the beginning of the 20th century in between 1914 and 1918. And this is also very interesting that this section was running through a park, which is the oldest park of Budapest. It's the Városmajor. and probably the function was not in conflict with the quality and the moodiness of the river. So this part of the river was covered the last. So finally, the Green Corridor became, after this period, when the huge 4 big urban parks could form in the bottom of the valley. But in the meantime, of course, when we got rid of the creek itself from the surface, it provided space for buildings and also for infrastructure lanes and roads to be developed. So the 4 big parks, it still faced a loss of a green space, and also it became fragmented by the development of the corridor. It still remains as a unique value in Budapest city structure. On the left side, you can see a strategic document of the conservation and preservation of natural assets of Budapest, which is in the strategy of Budapest development, urban development 2030. You can see the green corridor pointed by the white dotted arrow, that it's marked as a very important area for preservation as its natural character and natural assets. On the right side, you can see another strategy which is about the built heritage and the built heritage protection. The corridor itself is also marked very significantly in that strategy. It's not only because a part of it is a part of the World Heritage UNESCO site, but also it is marked as an important historic site carrying historic character of the urban structure and also of the cityscape. So just to answer the first research question, whether open up the creek and have a nice urban 21st century creekside landscape, as we know it from all other examples, we had to measure what we gain, and we had to also measure what we lose. The Buda Green Corridor is now a heritage issue because of its chain of parks, and the parks were formed after the loss of the creek. So if we open up the creek again, then we lose some of the parks which considered to be important in cultural history of Budapest. You can see a measurement. So maybe first we should see the cross sections. As you can see there, the depth of the creek bank is 6 to 11 meters from the present surface of the parks. So if we would like to open up, and we had to connect the opened up creek with a gentle slope to the surrounding areas, we lose altogether many of hectares of historic park, which is considered to be cultural historical value. So for example, in the Városmajor, we could lose 2.3 hectares of park area, historic park area, or in the Bloody Field, 3.7 hectares, or in the Taban, 6.5 hectares, which is a lot. And what we could gain? We could gain an open dry ditch, which is most of the time of the year is waterless due to climate change and also the urban development of the surrounding neighborhoods. So we would vote definitely for not opening up the creek because we could gain less than what we could lose. Second research question, how to enhance the connectivity of the fragmented green parts. What to do? The main character is what we have today is a chain of building blocks with buildings, park, traffic, blocks with buildings, park, traffic, and so on. So we consider that as an urban tissue, the main value of the character is to keep somehow this pattern, what was formed nowadays. So to enhance the connectivity, of course, we can still do a lot to open up the blocks or to develop the public areas, the public spaces between the blocks in a manner that you could feel more the connection between the green space. Also functional diversity, functional division between the parks. Now each park knows the same in terms of functions. If we can have a kind of a share of functions between the elements of the corridor, then we can have a lower impact, a lower load in each park, and then we can enhance more the green space, and we can have a better connectivity. As a summary, I would like to show you 3 tools, what we worked on. First, how we can have more green space inside the park areas. We examined what are the functions which are not anymore very welcomed and can be removed from the space, like sports halls, which generates too much traffic, or an open-air theater, which is not very much used today, or how to reduce the former paved areas like parking not used anymore or sports fields and transferred it into green areas. Just to show one number, in the case of Városmajor, we could gain more than 2 hectares of new green spaces to be able to reconstruct the historic park. What happens or what we propose to enhance to get a better connectivity? One is what to do between the blocks when we have historic buildings and historic urban tissue. Of course, with the development of the street between the 2 parks can help a lot. And also the street, which is now on top of the Devil's Ditch, if it's developed as a green promenade and cycle route, it can help the better connectivity issues. Or when we have transportation areas, if we can reorganize the transport, the present transport, then we can have a nicer promenades, green promenades and bicycle routes to connect one historic green space with another. Before I say thank you for your attention, I would like to just state that our research was more focused on the scale of the urban tissue and structure, and try to give tools and principles for development and reconstruction. We were not really pretty much focusing on the object level of the historic parks and buildings, which gave us a very new task, which was quite exciting. Thank you for your attention, and I'm waiting for your questions and comments in the questions and comment session. Thank you very much.
Ildiko, thanks a lot. I am very, very happy that edition by edition our forums are becoming more and more green. Thanks for the presence of landscape architects in our community. We've been talking a lot in the previous edition about preserving the historical urban landscape. And thanks to your presentation, we do not lose the awareness that the historical urban landscape constitutes not only the built environment, but the real environment, as well as the notion that restoring is not only putting the proper shape of the building or of the part of the city, but also, as you proved, the restoring of the green corridor, the restoring of the creek, which was once a problem for the city, and now it's something which brings the health, the new life, the fresh air. Thanks a lot for this. And I am opening our discussion. Do you have any comments or notes or questions? I had also one associations with Ilena Anna presentation. You shown us Mureș Valley 2 years ago in the heritage issue. This is our Polish-English quarterly. The issue was devoted to the Carpathians. We interviewed the Count Tibor Karnocki, who restored his manor house, his palace in Mikloșoara. It is another value. It is an old value, but one of the example we asked him simply, why did you return? Why did you come back? But this is, of course, he's a great example, but for such a densely furnished with palaces, with monuments area like Transylvania, there has to be different solutions. Not each family can get back its manor, of course, and take care of it.
I think the solution is to involve the community and to develop projects for the area, which focused on the cultural, multicultural spaces. I think this is a solution because the states don't have money, community don't see the value of the castle, and the sad example where the community stole the piece from the building, piece by piece, and destroyed the castle. And there is lost.
Let me. I've lost the connection a little bit. Okay. Let me ask the question from our audience. This is the question to Mine. Some remark put by Beata Nykiel, Dr. Beata Nykiel, who was also the co-curator of the Istanbul exhibition in the ICC. Let me read it. What a horrible change going on. Real wooden houses constituted the spirit of Istanbul, killing mahales. Identity is just losing their collective memories. Thanks for your great work. Do you get any support in this project from private museums and foundation in the area like Pera Museum and Istanbul Research Institute or Koç Foundation?
Actually, for this presentation, no, it was a graduate studio work at our university that we worked. We decided to work at Tarlabaşı and also Süleymaniye and Ayvansaray urban renewal areas were part of my PhD dissertation. So I had previous research on them. But for Tarlabaşı, we worked this semester, the spring semester, with our graduate students as a conservation studio with our graduate students, and we tried to understand the historic fabric and what is left out of the urban renewal area and how we can evaluate this area. But of course, it's a good idea maybe to have support from these institutions to further do more things on this subject. Thank you.
There is also a message from Barbara Furmanik to Ildiko. Barbara is appreciating very interesting project in Budapest she missed somehow and asks who asked this such an analyzing? Was it the city council?
No, it was the state. It was a state institute. There is a state agency which is responsible for the development of the agglomeration and Budapest. And they, in one of their strategies, they decided to develop the action area of the Buda Green Corridor. And they set in their goals that they would not like to develop it as having more buildings. and more function, but they would like to restore it as a green corridor to serve recreational needs, basically, and town ecological needs. So it was a state institute who ordered the research. We were very happy. We were never asked to do such a thing, so we were very happy of that.
Also, Barbara Furmanik is asking Ingrida Veliutė, was it difficult to prepare a management plan for Kaunas as a proposal for inscription on the UNESCO list?
I think it was actually. We had a team who and a very good leader of the team. It's Professor Marija Drėmaitė, and she actually was preparing with the team all the nomination dossier and the managing plan. But it was easier for us because as a part of government, I gave my promise that there will be a I'm not sure about the connections, and that there will be a positive solutions from government, and that there will be also positive solutions from municipality. So it wasn't so difficult to work because we had all we need. We had professionals, we had government, and we had municipality. And it is very important for today's UNESCO, for the preparation for UNESCO, for tentative list. And I think it is, I hope that it is our biggest success.
Thank you, and I've noticed also greetings from Professor Ewa Chojecka. She appreciates the fascinating variety of problems presented in Maciej presentations, and she's asking, how about the evaluation of post-war modernism in Poland? Would you try to comment, or would you also join to this very hot issue? Not only in Poland.
Yes, of course. I thought this is not quite new, but preparing this paper, I understand that we still have not enough tools and not enough methods to evaluate post-war modernism. And we still don't understand the difference between the modernity and the postmodern heritage, and so the limitation is now not specified in the proper way. And I think that there is still a lot to do in it, and both for Docomomo, for ICOMOS, and for other specialists and experts who are working in this field. The new heritage, the modern heritage, is the future old heritage, historical heritage. So, in fact, after this very interesting presentations that we can see here, I realized that all these much different topics, they are about the similar issue, about the similar area. And of course, thanks to Professor Ewa Chojecka. I was watching yesterday her presentation very carefully, and industrial heritage is something. Is good example, because we had the similar situation with the industrial heritage, which was not treated as a heritage, in fact, few years ago. And there is big similarity between the modern heritage, postmodern, and industrial, all examples from the 20th century. Yeah.
Thank you very much for all your presentation. Thank you for the discussion. You proved that there is enough job for all of us for many years on. Thanks for participating in this session. Ingrida, Ilena, Anna, Mine, Ildiko, Maciej. Thanks a lot. Stay with us in the second part of the session. Thanks for our audience for listening and watching us, and see you soon. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Thank you so much.
Bye bye.